Find Help, presented by Essentia Care Alliance's foster care programs. Thank you so much for being with us today for kind of a lunchtime webinar. Just so you know, if this is your first time participating in a webinar of this kind, we cannot see or hear you. We can only see and hear the panelists for today's webinar. So definitely feel free to eat your lunch if you're joining us today at lunchtime. But we are going to go ahead and get started. Today's webinar is a quick one, just until 12:30, so we'll make sure to get you out of here on time. We're going to start today with some introductions, and then most importantly, we have a foster parent guest speaker with us. One of our very own experienced foster moms is going to tell us about some challenges she's faced and how she's worked through those with Essentia. And then we will have time for Q&A. So definitely have questions at the ready for our foster mom or for our staff that are here today. And you can enter your questions in the control panel on the right side of your screen by sending them into the chat or questions section, and we will see those. So that's the best way for you to interact with us today. So let's do some introductions. So my name is Colleen Schroth. I am the Community Outreach Manager at Essentia's foster care programs in Massachusetts. So in Massachusetts, Essentia has two foster care programs that we'll talk about today. One is the Unaccompanied Refugee Minors program, and the other is Intensive Foster Care. And both of these programs work with homes all across the state and are partnered with the Massachusetts Department of Children and Families. And I'll also let my colleague Allie introduce herself before we give you a bit more detail about Essentia.
Hi, so my name's Allie. I am the current foster parent recruiter for Essentia Intensive Foster Care. So Essentia is a fostering program partnered with DCF. We receive referrals from children of DCF, meaning that we receive children that have been removed from their homes due to abuse or neglect by DCF and place them within our homes of licensed foster parents. We do have an intensive foster care program, which is what separates us from DCF. What that means is that we have much more support for our parents. Most foster parents in our program receive visits from family resource worker, caseworker, and the DCF caseworker to ensure optimal amount of support. The children we receive referrals from can age anywhere from toddlers to 22 years old, but our most common age is elementary or middle school years. And most of them do have some type of trauma or additional needs that they have from us, which can vary, but most examples include diagnosis of PTSD, anxiety, depression, or other emotional or behavioral challenges. So we take these kids and we put them in our home for a foster with our licensed foster parents. And today we're going to tell you some more about that.
Great. Thanks, Allie. No, that's awesome for people to know a little bit more about our IFC program. So I'll go ahead and talk about our Unaccompanied Refugee Minors program, our other foster care program. And that is a foster care program based in Worcester that serves refugee and immigrant youth that have come to the United States prior to their 18th birthday without a parent or guardian to care for them. They have come seeking safety from different types of dangerous circumstances in their home countries. So we have many youth from Central America, such as Guatemala and Honduras in the program at this time, youth that have fled gang violence, persecution, extreme poverty, and other forms of domestic or caregiver abuse and neglect. And then we also have refugee youth from countries like Afghanistan, Burma, Democratic Republic of the Congo that have fled war or other forms of persecution. So a very diverse group of youth, and obviously comes with its own unique set of challenges that we'll talk about today. And that's actually why we have Debbie here. So I'm going to turn it over to Debbie to introduce herself. She is a foster parent for the Unaccompanied Refugee Minors program. So she can start us off now without further ado, just to tell us a little bit about her background, how long she's been a foster parent, and her family. So Debbie, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Debbie. My husband and I are foster parents to 3 boys. We have 2 from Guatemala and 1 from Afghanistan. We have been working with the boys for 3 years, at least with the program for 3 years, and got our first kid 3 years ago. And so our family is pretty much my husband and I and our 3 boys. We don't have any of our own children, though we are very, very active aunt and uncle to kids nearby. And my husband is a social worker and I am an ESL teacher, which is how we kind of got interested in working with the unaccompanied minor program.
Great. Thanks, Debbie. So, in thinking about challenges that you've faced as a foster parent, which is the theme of today's webinar, we wanted to, tackle that head on, because out in the community, we know there are people who have maybe considered fostering, but are apprehensive or nervous or have a lot of questions. So what are some of the challenges that you faced as a foster parent, some key challenges that you think people should know about?
I'd say that 2 problems that we've faced most often or over time has been just general behavior. These kids are teenagers. They're going to do the same stuff that regular teenagers do, whether it's, having trouble talking with talking at school or not doing their work or sassing or, and with one of our kids, it's been more prominent than with some of the others because they have big personality. Like he has a big personality, and the kids in general have big personalities. So the other situation that we've kind of encountered, which was a little harder, is mental health issues, and it's been great for Essentia to be there for us through that because I was able to call on them for like the helpline, which is available 24/7, even during holidays. And we've had people be able to even send mental health counselors out to our house. And then we've also had time to talk with clinicians and social workers and family care workers. And so they've offered a lot of services. And when it comes to the behavior issues, it's similar things that they offer. It's just not been as urgent, but they're still there for those smaller issues as well.
Great. Yeah, you spoke to a lot of people that are part of the youth's team. So something I'll share with anyone listening is that every foster parent has a family worker that is supporting them at Essentia. And then every foster parent also has a caseworker that is supporting the youth and the foster parent. So that's at least 2 people at the URM program that are supporting the entire foster family. And at intensive foster care, as Allie mentioned, there's also a DCF worker in addition to the Essentia workers that are helping the youth and the family. So as a foster parent, I think a good motto and a good takeaway is that you are not in it alone. There are professionals involved that are there to help you, that are in the home either once a month, like at the URM, or actually weekly at intensive foster care. So there's a lot of support built in that way. And Debbie, it's so great that you've experienced fostering teenage boys. That is actually a group of youth in foster care that are the hardest to place because families have a lot of concerns working with teenage males and the challenges that brings up. So it's interesting to hear you talk about, some of the behaviors that you faced. And I know earlier we were talking before we got started, you mentioned some of the more like typical teen behaviors that you would expect to see with any youth, whether they are part of the foster care system or not. So I was just wondering if you could talk more to some of those, you know, typical teen behaviors you face and, you know, how you've worked through that as a family.
So we had a situation the other night where our son wanted to watch a certain movie and we did not want him to watch it. We didn't feel like it was appropriate. So we told him he could not. So he shut himself in his bedroom and which some people may expect that he'd blow up, but instead he shuts down. And we go and have dinner as a family every night, and he refused to come out for dinner. So my husband and I decided that we would take our plates and our dishes and go in there and have dinner. And he told us to get out, but then he followed us out to the table and sat with us. So I've found that humor is definitely a big way to address some of these things. Also, I've had times where my kids have just shut down, where they are going through something and they don't want to tell you. And I've found that meeting them where they are is helpful. Like, I will play video games with my kids because it's a time when we can talk and I can understand where they're coming from, and they'll open up to me, and it'll be very helpful for them, and not like being in their face and be like, so what's going on? You know, so it's been very, so dealing with some of those behaviors, you know, I've used humor and connection.
Awesome. Debbie, I love that story, and it definitely, we were chuckling beforehand, you know, imagining that situation. It's so true that humor is important as a parent, and I'm sure that folks out there that have biological children have found the same. And I love what you said about meeting youth where they are at. That is so important. You know, sometimes kiddos that have experienced trauma, they're not ready to talk about how they're feeling. And it's okay to give them that space or approach the conversation in a way that is comfortable for them. Another area of challenges I wanted to talk about, since we do have Debbie here, is challenges specific to working with unaccompanied refugee minors, with immigrant youth. You know, some of the challenges Debbie's mentioned so far are probably true for all kids in foster care, you know, shutting down, withdrawing, kind of going to their room and needing to draw them out, you know, maybe not being ready or wanting to talk about things. That could be the case for many youth in care. But what are some challenges, Debbie, that you think that your family has worked through that have been specific to immigrant youth?
I think one of the challenges is language. While my husband knows a little bit of Spanish and I know textbook Spanish, like there have been times when the situation's been more complicated where I haven't known exactly what to do. Thankfully, one of the foster brothers was able to help me because he's also from Guatemala, but I was also able to use translators when he wasn't there and just speak in English using a lot of visuals and like body language. And he actually picked it up so fast that he skipped a year in English. So he started at level 2 at the beginning of the year, and they're like, he's far too advanced now because he's speaking English at home, and went to level 3. Another thing we've encountered is sometimes just cultural things. This has actually been more a fun learning experience. Was one of our kids celebrates Ramadan, and we had no idea, like, you know, what do we do? Like, what are the traditions? Being older, he knew more of his traditions. But it was just interesting to know, like, kind of curtail our lifestyle for him. For example, his first summer that he was with us celebrating Ramadan, he wasn't able to eat until about 8 or 9 p.m. And my husband and I decided that was when dinner was going to be. And I remember at the end of one of the days, I said to my son, I said, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry waiting for dinner till 9 o'clock. And he looked at me and was like, you've been eating all day. haven't been able to eat at all. And I was like, very true. So, but it's been, there's times when it's a little bit more of a challenge with traditions where, for example, my family, Thanksgiving is a huge, huge, huge thing. Like Christmas is, small, is big, but Thanksgiving is big and it's really big. So we brought our sons down to New Jersey, and I think one of them was very overwhelmed by, everyone being there. My mom bringing out hats that are like in the shape of turkeys and everything, and was just like had a little bit of a behavior issue, and I just basically walked away from it, let him, let his foster dad kind of deal with it a little bit, because the foster dad's a little bit of an outsider as well into this tradition. And he eventually regrouped and hung out with his cousin who was about his age, and was within 15 minutes or maybe an hour was playing pool downstairs with the boys. So yeah, so sometimes like traditions and language can be a hard thing.
Right. Thank you, Debbie. Such important examples to touch upon for immigrant youth, and even for youth in domestic foster care that might be from a different religious upbringing or cultural background than the family that they're placed in. That can be the case too, even if they're not an immigrant, program. That definitely comes up in domestic foster care as well. And it's so important that there is that curiosity. And you mentioned that sometimes the cultural differences are fun. It's an opportunity to learn, and approaching with that open mind is so important. And, for those that aren't familiar, Ramadan is one of the biggest holidays in the Islamic faith. And in the Unaccompanied Refugee Minors Program, we have many youth from Afghanistan who practice Islam. So Ramadan is an important month of fasting and prayer, but there's also a lot of celebration and feasting in the evening hours. So definitely maybe a different tradition than what a Christian family might have experienced. So it's important to change your family structure and traditions a little bit to incorporate the youth, right? We can't just expect them to do all of our traditions and not return the favor. So there's definitely that sharing that happens in making new traditions together. Holidays can also be a challenging time for youth if it causes them to miss birth family or birth relatives. So it's not uncommon during holidays for youth to struggle a little bit, as Debbie spoke in her example, with maybe a little extra behavior or, just struggling to acclimate to the traditions. When you get to be with all of your extended family, maybe it makes them miss their extended family that they might have elsewhere. So great examples, Debbie. Unfortunately, we weren't able to have an intensive foster care parent here today to speak a little bit of some examples from our IFC program. So since we have Allie here, Allie, I wanted to just give you the opportunity to share anything in terms of challenges and support that are specific to intensive foster care, maybe any similarities you've heard from Debbie, or just anything else you would like to add with IFC.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on each case is different, each child is different, each person goes through their own set of difficulties. I guess it depends on the age. I mean, I know with smaller youth, a lot more like nightmares, wetting the bed, that kind of thing is prevalent. Whereas with older youth or teenagers, it's a lot more of maybe aggressive behaviors or running off or getting into arguments, kind of things like that. And just some of the help that we have to go along with that. I mean, we do have, I know Debbie was saying we have the 24-hour helpline that's always available for people to call and to vent or to talk or to kind of get an idea of what they're supposed to do and handle a situation. And then we do have you have the meetings with the case managers, with the DCF workers. We have all the helps that you could think of. And then in addition, if it's really necessary, if there's things that you're still not sure of even after all of that, we offer trainings and you can sign up for something that may be beneficial. So I think there's a lot of different challenges that all kids have, and there's a lot of different solutions to the challenges that kids have.
Great, very well said, Allie. I love that you highlighted the individuality of youth. So as much as today's webinar is trying to speak to some of the common challenges, the reality is every child is different, like Allie said. So, you know, their history is different, their culture is different. In this webinar, we wanted to tackle challenges head on because we know that's an area where people are apprehensive or have questions. But we also don't want to just focus on the negative. All of our youth are amazing individuals. They have their own dreams, their own aspirations, their own strengths that they bring to the table. So just like with biological children, you know, youth have their ups and their downs and their good days and their bad days, and it's no different here with foster care of any kind. So actually our next webinar, I'll highlight 1 month from today on Wednesday, March 15th at 6 p.m. We'll be doing the reverse topic of this webinar, the rewards of being a foster parent, and highlighting all of the rewards and great things about being a foster parent. You know, Debbie's been doing this for 3 years, so clearly, you know, there's a reason that keeps her going behind this. So as we wrap up today, maybe a little teaser for next webinar. Debbie, is there anything you'd like to share with people in terms of what motivates you to keep being a foster parent and what makes the challenging times worth it for you?
I think that for me, the reward is seeing these boys, which are actually 2 of them are really men now, developing into who they want to be and achieving their dreams. You know, one boy is working full time, one is going to college, and you know, these may not be opportunities they would have had otherwise. And I like helping them get to where they can make these dreams come true for themselves. And going through the hard times, I think of that, and I also think of the day-to-day, not just getting to where we're going, but that they make me laugh. Like a lot of the times, you know, people think, oh, foster care is really, really hard. Like it's like a constant grueling whatever. But half the time I spend watching telenovelas with my kid and eating Taki. So it's really not that, it's not like all hard work all the time. It's fun.
Right, right. Absolutely. And hopefully for the parents listening out there, that rings true for all types of parenting, right? There's challenges and there's rewards. Absolutely. Well, we're wrapping up here. So I want to thank Debbie. Thank you so much for being with us today. I haven't seen any questions come through in our chat. So I think we've done a good job of covering both some of the challenges and supports that Essentia has to offer. We will be sending out a follow-up email after today's webinar that will have today's recording and all of our contact information for Allie and I. So we definitely welcome you to reach out if you have more questions. We would love to speak with you one-on-one, and that's something we can arrange. I will say a challenge for all of foster care right now, speaking of challenges, is not enough foster parents. So we need more people who are willing to become foster parents. It's an urgent and if not dire need right now. There's not enough foster homes for youth in need in Massachusetts right now. So hopefully today's webinar, if you've considered fostering in the past, has kind of helped you open your eyes to you know, taking that leap and starting that journey. And if that's the case, we would love to hear from you. If not, and you'd like to know how you can help, forward our webinar to tell your friends more about foster care and help us spread the word. But yeah, so thank you all again for being here. I hope you have a great rest of the day. So we're going to wrap up now. So thanks again, Debbie. Thanks, Allie. Have a good day, everyone.